There are a couple of quotations I'd like to throw out to sort of set a theme to why we are here. There's a quotation from Benjamin Franklin, and you cannot find it in any of the high school history books, and not even in proper history books, except rarely. And it occurred, Franklin has always been depicted as one of the great bores of the founding fathers, and he, of course, was one of the most interesting. In 1789, he was at Philadelphia for the making of the Constitution. He's old, dying, and he finally read the handiwork of his fellow conventioneers, and he didn't like it. But he thought about it, and then he got up and he made a very interesting speech. He said, I think that we should accept this Constitution for all of its errors and omissions. At that time, the Bill of Rights was not in there. I think because it will give us, for a course of years, good government, which is what we need right now. And then in due course, as it would give good, it may be a blessing to the people if well administered. And I believe that this is likely to be well administered, and then only end due to the corruption of the people in despotism, which will be the only form of government suitable for them. This is as dark a statement as anyone has ever made. I thought of that, needless to say, when Franklin's prophecy came true in December 2000, when the Supreme Court bulldozed its way through the Constitution in order to select as their president the loser in the presidential election of that year. Despotism is now securely in the saddle. Is it due to the corruption of the people? Well, I thought, well, what is corruption? The founding fathers were always, many of them, on the verge of it. Others in the Congresses were, the blankets didn't get to Valley Forge because it couldn't pass Congress that was sitting in Philadelphia. Corruption has always been with us, but when it becomes so total that you allow an election and to make no contest, there was no outcry across the country when this terrible manipulation took place. And then, of course, Enron and Anderson, it is taken for granted that these great companies are like this, that CEOs are taking all the money that is not nailed down, and people out of work with no relief to fall back upon. So now I think what we might chat about is that despotism is really in the saddle, and the old republic is a shadow of itself. And we now stand in the glare of a nuclear world empire with a government that sees as its true enemy we, the people, deprived of our electoral franchise. War is the usual aim of despots, and serial warfare is what we're going to get, unless with help from well-wishers in new old Europe and from ourselves, awake at last, we can persuade this peculiar administration that they are acting on their own and against all our history. The other night on CNN, I brought the Admirable Aaron Brown to a full stop. I do not do 19th century Fox. I brought him to a full stop not with Franklin, but with President John Quincy Adams, who said in the 1820s on the subject of our fighting to liberate Greece from Turkey, "The United States goes not abroad in search of monsters to destroy. If the United States took up all foreign affairs, she might become the dictatress of the world, but she would no longer be the ruler of her own spirit or soul. Should we be allowed in 2004 to hold a presidential election here in the homeland, I suspect we shall realize that the only regime change that need concern our regained spirit or soul is in Washington. President Adams is long since dead, and we have now been in the empire business since at least 1900 with the conquest of the Philippines. The local population did not want us there. We promised them independence. We killed 220,000 of them while subduing them. A few years ago, there was a significant exchange between the then General Colin Powell and the then statesperson Madeleine Albright. Like so many civilians, she was eager to use our troops against one of our many, many, many enemies. Everywhere we look, there's somebody lurking who might one day find a special death ray and turn it on us. One could hardly sleep at night knowing these dangers all around us. When Powell said no, she said, "What's the point of having all this military and not using it?" He said, "They are not toy soldiers." But in the interest of fighting communism, we did spend trillions of dollars until we are now threatening to sink under the weight of so much weaponry. Much of it we have shifted over on to Afghanistan and Iraq. Last summer, Congress received from the administration a document called the National Security Strategy of the United States. As the historian Joseph Stromberg observed, it must be read to be believed. The doctrine preaches the desirability of the United States becoming, to use Adams' word, dictatress of the world. It also, it used to be Nicaragua was quite enough, now it's going to be Korea, China. It also assumes that the president and his lieutenants are morally entitled to govern the planet. It declares that our best defense is a good offense. The doctrine of preemption is next declared. As a matter of common sense, they write, and self-defense, America will act against emerging threats before they are fully formed. Now, this is a kind of madness. This is not what we started the country for. It's not what the rest of the world wants. I mean, it is as if, I'm sure, at this very moment, good General Ashcroft, brave officer of the junta that he is probably up in Utah arresting Mormon boys before they grow up and then kidnap 8 girls for future wives. They're going to do it. We know the danger. If you put them all in prison, in concentration camps, those girls are safe, thank God. Danger, danger everywhere we look. Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution says that only Congress can declare war. But Congress surrendered that great power to the president in 1950 and has never taken it back. As ex-Senator Simpson, and he was one of my favorite clowns, said so cheerily on TV the other evening, the people of the United States don't declare war. The commander-in-chief does. So in great matters, we are not guided by law, but by faith in the president, whose powerful Christian beliefs preach real faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. In response to things not seen, the USA Patriot Act was rushed through Congress 45 days after 9/11. We are expected to believe that its carefully crafted 342 pages were written in that short time. Actually, it reads like a continuation of Clinton's post-Oklahoma City Anti-Terrorist Act. The Patriot Act makes it possible for government agents to break into anyone's home when they're away, conduct a search, and keep the citizen indefinitely from finding out that a warrant was issued or not. They can oblige librarians to tell them what books anyone has withdrawn. If the librarian refuses, he or she can be criminally charged. They can also collect your credit reports and other sensitive information without judicial approval or the citizen's consent. Finally, all this unconstitutional activity need not have the slightest connection with terrorism. Early last month, the Justice Department leaked Patriot Act 2, known as the Domestic Security Enhancement Act, as of January 9, 2003. It has not yet gone to Congress, but it has certainly been leaked, and I saw parts of it. Here's a provision. If an American citizen, born American citizen, has been accused of supporting an organization labeled as terrorist by the government, he can be deprived of his citizenship, even if he had no idea the organization had any link to terrorism. Provision of Act 2 is also made for more searches and wiretaps without warrant, as well as Section 201, secret arrests. In case a citizen tries to fight back in order to retain the citizenship he or she was born with, those federal agents who conduct illegal surveillance with the blessing of high administration officials are immune from legal action. A native-born American deprived of citizenship would presumably be deported, as today a foreigner-born person can be deported. Also, according to American citizens, the provision has some wonderful language in it. It says he can be deported, he's stripped of his citizenship, deported from the United States. Then they suddenly thought, well, what country would want him, you know? We better rephrase this. Because he can't, of course, get a passport, as he doesn't have citizenship. So the thoughtful devisers of our domestic security enhancement authorizes the Attorney General to deport him, quote, to any country or region, regardless of whether the country or region has a government. Well, it sounds like heaven to me. Anyway, that's how you get rid of the Bill of Rights in one big sweep. Back in '39, our greatest historian, Charles A. Beard, wrote, "The destiny of Europe and Asia has not been committed under God to the keeping of the United States, and only conceit, dreams of grandeur, vain imaginings, lust for power, or a desire to escape from our domestic perils and obligations could possibly make us suppose that Providence has appointed us his chosen people for the pacification of the earth. Those Americans who refuse to plunge blindly into the maelstrom of European and Asiatic politics are not defeatist or neurotic. They are giving evidence of sanity, not cowardice, of adult thinking as distinguished from infantilism. They intend to preserve and defend the Republic. America is not to be Rome or Britain. It is to be America."